Welcome back to Talk Show, the show where we connect the dots so you don't have to. And again, the dots are now negotiating with Iran while threatening World War III. It's Thursday, February 19th. And if you're wondering why that matters, it's because on Monday, there was literally a cosmic event. One annual solar eclipse, please. The ring of fire in the sky, visible from Antarctica and the Southern Ocean. It's perfect because the only people who could see it are penguins and climate scientists who are documenting the end times anyway. Meanwhile, the rest of us are watching a different ring of fire. No, not the one caused by your late night Chipotle visit, which is sad because we used to make that joke about Taco Bell, y'all. Poor, neglected Chipotle is now the poster child for enshittification. Anyway, U.S Iran talks in Geneva, where apparently Jared Kushner is our chief negotiator. Because nothing says diplomacy like the guy who solved Middle East peace by having no plan B. No plan B. Sounds like something from the Epstein files. Whoa! Let's bake this potato. In our first segment, we're talking about U.S. and Iran nuclear talks with a splash of extra threat. So the United States and Iran are holding their second round of nuclear talks. That happened earlier this week, happened in Geneva. Round 2, because round 1 was absolutely amazing, as we all remember. The talk is being mediated by Oman, which is diplomatic speak for we need a neutral third party because these two can't be in the same room without threatening airstrikes. So who's representing the U.S.? We've got Steve Witkoff, Trump's Middle East envoy, and we've got Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law and the embodiment of human nepotism. That's right. We've assembled the Avengers of Do You Know Who My Father Is? Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, which I know I'm mispronouncing, I apologize, sort of, he's showing up saying, I'm in Geneva with real ideas to achieve a fair and equitable deal. What is not on the table? Submission before threats. And that, I would say is incredibly reasonable. And of course, Trump responded by threatening to bomb them again if they don't make a deal. So, classic diplomacy. Now here's the context of all of this because we all have such short memories, myself included. Last year, the U.S. and Israel bombed Iranian nuclear strikes with B-2 stealth bombers. The kind that cost more than a small country's GDP. Now Trump is saying, we could have had a deal instead of sending the B-2s in to knock out their nuclear potential. Which is insane, because it's basically saying, we could have talked this out, but I chose violence first. And now I'm mad that you won't negotiate. Also, I can't stress this enough. The U.S. military preparing for weeks of sustained operations against Iran. If Trump gives the order, right? That's lined up. So the message is clear. Let's talk. But I also have 2 aircraft carriers pointed straight at your capital. And nothing says peace like aircraft carriers. In our next segment, I just want to remind us all of the magic of President's Day, the holiday nobody asked for, and also bonus, even make some of your friends jealous if you happen to get the day off. So yes, Monday was President's Day. Banks were closed. Stock market was closed. Americans basically across the country celebrated by, going to Target? Running errands? I'll tell you, nothing honors George Washington quite like a 20% off sale on throw pillows. Also, fun fact, the stock market lists President's Day as Washington's birthday, not actually as President's Day. Because apparently even the New York Stock Exchange is like, we're not celebrating all the presidents, just the ones who didn't tweet. Or truthed. Stupid, gosh, I can't believe that's a thing. All right, it's time for everybody's favorite lightning round, world news in a minute, where I speedrun the apocalypse so you don't have to. First off, Iran. As discussed, nuclear talks happened in Geneva, military drills in the state of Hormuz, internet is still shut down, thousands are still protesting, and at least 7,000 people have been killed in the crackdown so far. But sure, let's keep calling it a diplomatic opening. Next topic, Israel. Netanyahu demanding complete dismantling of Iran's nuclear program. Not a reduction, not limitations, not something else. Full dismantlement. That's basically Microsoft asking someone to delete their entire operating system and then trusting that they won't install bloatware. Oh my gosh, Microsoft not install bloatware? The things I say. Also, they don't want you to own your computer anymore. Here's a fun, quick one. Antarctica. Scientists at the research stations got to see a solar eclipse. Isn't that amazing? The rest of us got to watch superpowers play chicken. Russia, Ukraine, y'all remember that dynamic? The U.S. is also hosting Russia-Ukraine peace talks. Those also happened earlier this week in Geneva. Geneva is basically like the global timeout corner right now. It's great. Anyone who's ever been bad has to go to sit in Switzerland and think about what you've done. In Pakistan, a 40-hour counterterrorism operation has just ended. 145 militants killed, 18 civilians killed, and 18 security personnel killed. Unusually equal on those two fronts. And Pakistan is accusing India of backing the militants, which is kind of the geopolitical equivalent of saying, he started it. Then you have Nigeria. Nigeria says it has killed a senior Boko Haram commander. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I don't know. They're a violent Islamic insurgency, in case you didn't know. I learned that recently. Feels like there might be more than one of those out there. But I guess that's one less problem with this guy being taken out. 10,000 more to go. In our next bit, I love me some space porn. So I'm going to show you some space porn. Back to the solar eclipse, as I was talking about, there was some really amazing footage, especially the footage captured from space. Oh. I feel like the little green aliens from Toy Story. Yeah, so that happened. The eclipse was visible from Antarctica, the Southern Ocean, parts of South America, and parts of Southern Africa. So yes, I think the statistics called out that there were 176 million people that will see a partial eclipse, which sounds like a lot until you realize Earth has 8.3 billion people. So 2% of humanity got a real cool space event, and the rest of us are just dealing with nuclear brinkmanship. Also, this is pretty important. You need eclipse glasses for the entire event. Because unlike the total eclipse, the sun is never fully covered. And that's a great metaphor for 2026, folks. The danger is always there. You just can't look directly at it without some sort of protection. Okay, main story time. Let's get into it. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey announced today that the city suffered $203 million in economic damage in January alone due to Trump's immigration crackdown. $203 million in a single month. And now, like this part, he's demanding that the federal government pay for it. That's bold, considering the federal government, caused all that damage. I'm just going to give you the broadest, fastest strokes I can give you. Here's what happened. Operation Metro Surge deployed 3,000 federal officers to Minneapolis. They conducted weeks of relentless detentions. Legal residents were terrified to leave their homes. People stopped going to work. People stopped taking kids to school. Businesses lost tremendous amount of revenue. And the administration's response, it sounds like a you problem. Mayor Frey said Minneapolis taxpayers should not be left to foot the bill, especially because the situation was created by the federal government. That seems extremely reasonable to me, but also incredibly optimistic, because asking this administration for money is like asking a toddler for rent. All right, let's recap for you. Nuclear talks with aircraft carriers on standby. An eclipse that only the scientists got to see. Minneapolis is asking for $203 million. They deserve it. Kushner is negotiating Middle East peace. Gosh, son of a... And Iran is holding military drills while the internet is still shut off. I'll tell you, if it feels overwhelming, remember, you're not supposed to track all of it. You're supposed to track one thing while the 6 others are quietly happening in the background. That's not chaos. That's the system working as intended. So that's it for today's episode. If you learned something, I'm sorry. If you didn't, congrats, you're coping correctly. Like, subscribe, share, stare into the void during the eclipse with proper eye protection. And I'll see you later this week on Talk Show, where the news keeps happening and I keep asking why. Actually, I'll be off for about a week or so. We'll be back at the beginning of March. Thanks again.